Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Robert, and this is the story of how I discovered the truth about my wife, Gabrielle, and took control of my life. I never thought I'd be telling a story like this, but here I am, laying it all out because I know I'm not the only one who's been through something like this. You see, I believed in my marriage. I believed in the woman I married. And for 9 years, I thought we had something solid. But life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it. After almost a decade of marriage, I thought I knew my wife, inside and out. One thing she always appreciated was a well-thought-out surprise. The little details mattered to her, and I had spent years picking up on those small things that made her eyes light up. So, for her birthday, I wanted to do something truly special, not just dinner, but an experience. I took the day off from work, and I hired a professional chef. As the chef worked his magic in the kitchen, I set up the dining area. I didn't want it to feel like just another night at home. I wanted it to feel different, intimate, special. Everything was in place. I could already picture her reaction. The way her face would light up when she walked through the door, how she'd take in the scent of the food, the setup, and then look at me with that expression that said, "You really did all this for me?" I checked the time. She'd be home in an hour. Everything was ready. What I didn't know was that my carefully planned surprise was about to turn into the worst night of my life. An hour passed, and Gabrielle still wasn't home. That wasn't normal. She was usually back around 6:30, sometimes 7 o'clock at the latest. I considered calling her, but that would ruin the surprise. So instead, I checked her location. Gabrielle and I had each other's locations shared on our phones. It was something we set up early in our marriage, just for safety, in case of emergencies. But she wasn't. Her location was pinging from a restaurant downtown. I wondered if her office colleagues or her friends decided to host her. But I needed to be sure so that she wouldn't eat so much that there was no space in her tummy for what I had prepared at home. I took a deep breath and called her. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice calm, almost distracted. "Hey, you on your way home?" I asked, keeping my tone light. There was a small pause. Then she sighed. "Ugh, not yet. Work is insane today. I'm buried in reports, and it's looking like I'll be here late." I felt my heart drop. I knew she was lying. I was staring at her location. She wasn't at the office. She was at a restaurant, sitting at a table somewhere, while I sat at home, waiting for her with a carefully planned birthday surprise. But I didn't react. Not yet. I forced a small chuckle and said, "All right, no problem. I'll see you later then." The moment the call ended, I just stood there. 100 thoughts ran through my mind at once. What do I do now? I had two choices: trust her word or see it with my own eyes. Every part of me wanted to believe that this was just a misunderstanding, that any second now she'd call me back and tell me she was on her way home. But that call never came. So, I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. The drive to the restaurant felt like it took forever, even though it was just a few miles away. My mind raced through all the possibilities. I was overthinking this. When I got to the restaurant, it didn't take me too much stress to find her through the large glass windows. She sat at a small, intimate table for two. She wasn't alone. Across from her, laughing, leaning in close, was a man I recognized immediately, her colleague, the one she had introduced me to months ago at a company event. The way they looked at each other, it didn't look like two coworkers having a casual meal, and even if they were having a casual meal, why would she lie? Her office was far from this restaurant. It doesn't make sense unless there is something. She kept smiling like she was in a scene from a romance movie, but I needed one final confirmation. I pulled out my phone and called her. From my spot in the shadows, I watched as her phone lit up on the table. She glanced at the screen, and for a split second, my heart foolishly hoped she'd pick up. But she didn't. Instead, she sighed, silenced the phone, and placed it face down, allowing it to ring, as if my call was just a minor inconvenience. She turned her attention back to him, like I was nothing more than an interruption. Something inside me shattered. I didn't barge in. I didn't make a scene. I simply raised my phone, took a few quiet photos, and walked back to my car. I drove home in silence, feeling numb, empty, and completely lost. I don't remember how long I sat staring at nothing in that dark living room. I was angry, but more than that, I was lost. What was I supposed to do? Confront her? Pretend I hadn't seen anything? I needed to talk to someone who could give me a clear perspective, because at that moment, my thoughts were scattered. So I picked up my phone and called Daniel, my best friend since college. If there was one person who would tell me the truth without sugarcoating it, it was him. The second he picked up, he could tell something was off. "Rob, what's wrong?" he asked, concerned. I hesitated, but then it all spilled out. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "Man, I hate to say this, but it's not looking good." "Listen," he said, his tone serious now. "You can't just sit on this. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with before you make a move. What if this has been going on longer than you think? What if there's more to it than just one dinner?" I ran a hand over my face, exhausted. "So what do I do?" "You need a private investigator. Someone who can get you the facts, the full truth. That way, when you confront her, you'll have everything in your hands. No room for her to lie or twist the story." Daniel added. When Gabriel finally walked through the door, it was past 10 p.m. I just sat there, staring at the untouched dinner on the table. The candles had burned low, casting long shadows across the plates of food that had gone cold hours ago. I had imagined this moment so differently. Instead, she stepped inside, sighed heavily, and dropped her bag near the entrance. She ran a hand through her hair, looking exhausted, then met my gaze with a practiced frown of regret. "Babe, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice thick with forced guilt. "Work was a nightmare today. The deadline was moved up, and I had no choice but to stay. I hated missing tonight." I sat there, listening, watching. It was all so perfectly rehearsed. The same woman I had loved for years was standing right in front of me telling a lie, without so much as a flicker of hesitation. I just nodded, swallowing the anger that burned in my throat. "It's okay," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I know work gets crazy sometimes." She walked over and pressed a kiss to my cheek. I wanted to pull away, but I didn't. Instead, I forced a small smile and told her I had saved some of the food if she was hungry. She shook her head, saying she was too tired to eat. Another lie. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I made the arrangement. I set up to meet with a private investigator the next day. If my marriage was already broken, I needed to know just how deep the cracks went. Over the next month, I did my best to keep my emotions in check while the private investigator did his job. Every day felt like I was living a double life. It wasn't easy. I had to wake up next to Gabrielle, eat breakfast with her, listen to her talk about work, and pretend I didn't know that she was sneaking around with someone else. The PI worked fast, and by the second week, he had already gathered significant evidence. Photos, videos, timestamp proof of Gabrielle meeting up with the man I had once been introduced to as just a colleague. They weren't just meeting up at hotels. They had been seeing each other at different spots all over the city. Cafes, bars, restaurants, and even parking lots where they sat in her car for hours. It was calculated routine. And then the final piece of the puzzle came in. The other man was married, too. His wife had no idea that while she was home taking care of their family, her husband was out sneaking around with mine. The irony was painful. Two people breaking their vows, living double lives, and lying to the people who trusted them the most. By the time the PI handed me the final report, I knew I had everything I needed. Photographic evidence, videos, exact times and locations. It was undeniable proof. I could have exposed them instantly, ruined their careers, their reputations, their relationships, but I didn't. Gabrielle was no ordinary employee at her company. She was high up the corporate ladder, respected and admired. If word got out that she was sleeping with a subordinate, a married one at that, it wouldn't just be a scandal. It would be the end of her career. The company had strict policies against workplace relationships, especially between people of different ranks. If this information reached HR, she could face demotion, termination, or worse, a lawsuit from the wife of her lover. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in control. I wanted a clean break on my terms. The evidence I had was enough to make sure that when I walked away, I wouldn't be the one left picking up the pieces. No messy court battles, no fights over money, no false accusations against me. I was going to make her sign the divorce papers and walk away quietly. And if she refused, I'd make sure every single detail of her affair landed in the right inboxes. If Gabrielle wanted to build a new life with someone else, fine. I finally had the upper hand, and I was going to use it. That night, Gabrielle came home late again. Same routine, same excuses. She walked in, sighing dramatically as she set her bag down on the counter. "You wouldn't believe the day I had," she said. "I was drowning in work." I didn't respond right away. I just watched her, letting the silence settle between us. For a long time, I had played along, nodding, pretending to believe her. But not tonight. Tonight I was done. "There's no need to keep living a lie," I finally said, my voice calm but firm. I reached for the folder sitting on the table and pushed it toward her. Beside it, I placed a stack of papers, our divorce documents, already prepared. Gabrielle's face twitched, her confusion quickly turning into something else, fear. She glanced at the folder, but didn't open it. What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "These are your two choices," I said, my tone steady. "Sign the divorce papers and walk away quietly. No legal mess, no drama. Or," I tapped the folder, "I send this to your company's HR, your colleagues, and your lover's wife." Her face drained of color. She still didn't open the folder, but she didn't have to. She knew exactly what was inside. She shook her head, backing away slightly, like she was trying to distance herself from the truth. "Robert, no, it's not what you think," she stammered. "Please, just let me explain." I didn't say anything. I had already heard enough lies. Her breathing quickened. Her hands trembled as she finally reached for the folder and flipped it open. Photos. Recordings. Proof. The tears came fast. Real or fake, I didn't care anymore. "It was a mistake," she cried. "A stupid mistake. It didn't mean anything. I never planned to replace you, I swear." I exhaled slowly. It was almost laughable how predictable this was. "I still love you," she whispered, stepping closer, her hands reaching for mine. "Please, Robert, we can fix this. I'll end it. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't do this." I looked down at her hands, then back up at her face. I pulled my hands back. "This isn't about love, Gabrielle," I said coldly. "It's about respect. And you lost mine." For a long time, she just stood there, her eyes darting between me and the divorce papers. I could see the hesitation, the fear. Not because she wanted to fix our marriage, but because she didn't know how this would affect her reputation, her career, and her image. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Sign them, Gabrielle," I said. "Or we do this the hard way." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. She sniffled, wiped her tears, and grabbed the pen. She signed, her hand shaking, but she did it. When she put the pen down, she looked at me with one last pleading gaze. "You promise you won't send this out?" she asked. "You'll keep this between us?" I nodded. "As long as you don't make this messy." She bit her lip, probably debating whether to believe me. But she had no choice. She had played her hand and lost. And just like that, it was over. The woman I once thought I'd spend forever with was now just a chapter one was closing. She couldn't play the victim, couldn't claim I mistreated her or that I was some terrible husband. She had no defense. And that was the part that killed her the most. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing control over the narrative. She exhaled sharply, wiping her eyes. "What do I tell people?" she finally asked. I shrugged. "That's your problem, Gabrielle." She frowned, probably expecting more. Maybe she thought I'd give her a neat little excuse to tell her friends and family. Something like, "We just grew apart," or "We had different goals." But I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She needed to figure out how to explain why her seemingly perfect marriage fell apart overnight, without admitting the truth. And the best part? She couldn't drag my name through the mud either, because if she started spreading lies, I had proof to shut her down instantly. Looking back, I can see things more clearly now. It wasn't love that kept Gabrielle in our marriage. It was the image of being a married woman, the status it gave her, the stability I provided. She liked what we had, but she didn't respect it enough to be faithful. And that's the thing about betrayal. It forces you to see reality for what it is, whether you're ready or not. For a long time, I thought losing her would be the worst thing that could happen to me. But staying in that marriage, that would have been the real loss. Staying would have meant living a lie, sacrificing my self-worth, and letting someone else's choices define my happiness. In the end, I walked away with my peace. So I didn't lose. I may have lost my wife, but I took back my life. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this: trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. I had doubts, little signs here and there, but I brushed them aside because I didn't want to believe the person I loved would betray me. But the truth doesn't care about what you want to believe. It's always there, waiting for you to see it. And when you do, pay attention to actions, not words. People will say whatever they need to say to keep you where they want you. They'll lie with a straight face, just like Gabrielle did, because words are easy. But their actions? That's where the truth is. Most importantly, never let someone's lies trap you in a false reality. I wasted time trying to understand why. But at the end of the day, cheating isn't a mistake, it's a choice. And I had a choice too, to either stay and let it break me or to walk away and rebuild. If you ever find yourself in a situation like this, know your worth. Don't beg for love, don't settle for betrayal, and don't stay where you aren't respected. You deserve better. Thanks for listening. Stay strong, and always choose yourself.